And at this time, I'm going to introduce Mary Ann to you, and she will be leading the presentation today. Oh, I have to open the poll first. Can you hear me, Mary Ann?
Yes, I can.
All righty, I'm going to go ahead and pass you the ball.
Okay.
And it's all yours.
All righty. Good evening, everybody. I'm glad that we can all be nice and dry inside our houses or wherever we may be, as opposed to being outside in that wet world. As Carrie said, my name is Mary Ann Krutzik. I am a volunteer for Girl Scouts of Central Indiana, and I've been doing facilitating for, I don't know, probably about 5 or 6 years now. And I have had about 3 years of being the registrar for our service unit, and I've also been the CTO in the past. So I come with some experience, so hopefully I can answer questions that you have for. I know some of you may not have done the registrar position for very long or at all, so hopefully we can answer the questions that you have for this evening. And one of the things that we will look at is that with that, anything that I can answer, please make sure that you do ask the question in the chat box or raise your hand. You'll notice down at the bottom of the list of all the names of people participating, there's a little hand sign. Like right now, I see Mary Alice Bondrick. She has her hand up. Mary Alice, if you do actually have your hand up to ask a question, nope, either you're shy or you didn't have a question. So basically, if you do have a question and I haven't seen something in the bottom box, raise your hand so I see that, and I can call on you and have you answer a question. We are excited to give you this registration training tonight. It's a very role that's very vital in the service units. The training tonight is going to focus on the service team position of being the registrar and your responsibilities throughout the year. And we're going to focus on the actual early bird position. We're not going to go into really great detail about all of the exact position responsibilities for the service unit registrar. So if you are really new, know that you will get that training on July 16th or August 12th. There will be also a detailed service unit register learning training session during the service team conference on June 21st. So you will have 3 different times that you can get in-depth training prior to that. And we are going to go ahead and hit the next slide. So the learning objectives tonight are to review your service unit registrar's responsibility, talk about membership dues for 2014 and 2015. We are also going to talk about some changes in the forms and the procedures, and talk about the early bird incentive. There is going to be the slumber party at the Speedway like we did last year. So those are the things that we're going to look at and go over for you. Now, the responsibilities, basically you need to take the service unit register training annually because there's usually changes of some kind annually. You're going to want to train your leaders how to accurately register their troops, whether by paper or e-council, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. You're going to be responsible for distributing handouts and packets from the council at the service unit meetings. You are going to be responsible for entering data year-round into e-council. Training new leaders, and we'll talk about some of the ways that you can do that to enter their own troop information. We don't want the registrar person or persons, if your service unit has more than one person, we don't want you to become the data entry management people because it's time-consuming and it causes a great amount of burnout. So we want you to basically learn how to train other people so that you have a team of people entering that data. You are also going to be learning how to, not today, but in the future meetings, you would be being trained to provide data to the service unit manager, such as lapsed troop reports, troops that are not meeting adult ratio requirements, service unit rosters, just to name a few. There are tons of different reports that you can run in order for you and the service unit manager and your MDM to keep tabs on what's going on with the volunteers in your service unit and the girls. You are responsible also for attending service and team and service unit meetings and presenting membership reports, assigning new troop numbers as needed, and those troop numbers come from council in a spreadsheet. And then you would be responsible for rostering all service team members and making sure that their positions are attached to their names in order to ensure that we have a good group of adequate data inside of eCouncil, because for that, that's where it would say that, you know, so-and-so is, or Mary Ann's a service unit registrar, and so then when they're looking to send out an email to from council for all service unit registrars, they can just push a button and they're able to send it all out at once. So those will be some of the responsibilities that you will have or you have had. Also ensuring that all the troops are registered and have approved GSCI volunteers, and turning all paperwork and all paper volunteer applications within 5 business days to the nearest Girl Scout Service Center. That's one that's really important. I don't know how many of you have actually had luck with the volunteer application online. The volunteer application, I want to remind people, is the form that is done for the background check. It's not the registration, it's the form for the background check. And if you send somebody to the Girl Scouts of Central Indiana website, to the forms page, and you go down to adult volunteers and pick up the volunteer application, they can go online to apply for their background check, basically. It will then go through the system. Nobody at council has to touch it. The Social Security number is encrypted. You don't have to worry about anybody getting hold of it. And you don't have to have somebody's Social Security number in a folder in your car, sitting in your house in places that it doesn't belong, where it could get stolen. So you're not physically responsible for it. And I will tell you that our service unit did that this year. We're part of Hamilton, I'm in the Hamilton Southeastern Service Unit, and it worked out really well. There were a couple of glitches that we ran into, is not having to track down people that didn't do it, but I think we've got some of the kinks ironed out for next year. Now, your membership dues are going to be $15 this year. They're the same as they were this last year. If you have somebody who is a graduating ambassador that wants to do lifetime membership for Girl Scouts, if they pay prior to August 30th, so in other words, if they do it during this early bird time, it is only $195. Any other time somebody does lifetime adult membership, it is $375. This can be done any time during the year, but again, we can encourage people to do it during the early bird sessions. All right, this is not the best view of the form, and I'm going to apologize. There's a couple of changes that are on the form, so if you get up really nice and close and cozy to your computer, if you have nice cheater glasses like I do, you'll be able to see what I'm looking at. And underneath the area where there's the levels for Girl Scouts, for like Daisy, Senior, Brownie, all of that, you will see that after the Girl Scout Ambassador area, there is a little circle for multi-grade now. And that's important because we do have a lot of troops and a lot of different service units that are multi-grade. They're not just one grade, and so that allows us to be able to check that and be able to track that so that it's trackable inside of eCouncil. The other thing that you need to remember is that this membership registration summary that you're looking at has to be submitted each time that you do a troop being registered. So when you're going into eCouncil and that group is being registered inside of eCouncil, then you have to do the paper up, make sure that everything is filled out, that you have the summary number written up in the top right-hand corner, what was the date that you did this and entered it into eCouncil. Your signature needs to be there so they know who actually entered it into eCouncil, and then that has to be turned into council. That is the way that they are able to track what is done in eCouncil and be able to basically marry up the report in eCouncil with all the paper that we turn in, so they know that everything is justified and they're able to actually track it for auditing purposes. The other thing is financial assistance also. You'll notice that girls with requesting financial assistance, you can include them on this form with the rest of the troop. However, you do need to take and make sure that you give this form directly to the membership development manager, along with the form for requesting financial assistance. That form has to be completed by the leader. It is out on the Girl Scouts of Central Indiana website under the registration area. You have to make sure it's complete, that the parent signature is there, that the leader's signature is there, that you then give that to the membership development manager from council along with this membership registration summary and any copies of any receipts so that they have everything in full. The copies of the receipts would be to have a copy to show that you paid online, capture a screen copy, or get the little receipt out. You also, if you are banking your funds, you would take and staple that bank receipt to that copy so it doesn't get lost, and make sure that you put your troop number on the receipt just in case something happens and it separates. Again, these are all things that you are doing in order to be able to make sure that they are able to justify everything at council. So the other thing too on this is that membership registration summary number is actually right in here where it says summary and receipt number. That's where you're going to put that summary number, and then you can also put a slash and put your bank receipt number if you have a bank receipt also. So that's where you're going to be putting this in. Now, the next thing that you also need to know about this form is that there is in eCouncil, the other thing that you will be doing on the registrations as you put in each person is there is a new area for county. They're asking for the county that the person lives in. It's a new field this year for eCouncil, and all the counties are populated, so you're just going to do a drop down and be able to do that within eCouncil. The next form that we're going to talk about is for the girls, for the membership form.
Marianne?
Yes.
This is Cynthia at Stone Rock. I had a question about this form. Last year, we didn't turn that form in. We put everything into eCouncil and then just printed the due summary.
Okay.
Is that okay? It has and then we wrote the due summary number on it with the troop number and all that. So
you can do that also. I know that some of our troops have done that in the past. One of the things that we're going to have to kind of feel along the way this year is right now, as most of you that have been a registrar for a while may know or not know, Carol Lassane is taking a different position and is now a membership development manager and no longer in the position that collects all of the data that we put into eCouncil. And so there's still some questions as to who's going to be filling what kind of roles at council. As far as I know, that's not going to be an issue, but we probably need to check with Robin. And one of the things I'm looking at right now is I'm getting a message from Carrie, and Carrie's saying that as far as she knows that the form is what Robin is going to prefer. So it looks like that form has enough information on it that the printout does not. I know one of the things that the printout, when people do the printout, this area down here with all the payments and all of that kind of information is not on there. So if we're just haphazardly writing different things in different places, it's going to make it harder for them to be able to justify everything and be able to make sure that all of the monies and all of the entries that have been in eCouncil match what we say it has up on the form. One of the things is that I can kind of liken it to is if you're responsible for payroll in a company, you have to justify the hours that the person writes on the time card. You have to make sure those match. And then if you're typing in what the hours are somewhere to make sure that it goes out for the actual paycheck to be done, you then have to take and check that what you've done and put in manually now matches up what you think that the payroll is. So it's that same kind of accounting kind of thing that the Girl Scouts of Central Indiana has to do. And I think it will just make it a lot easier if we're all using these forms like they want us to instead of printing out that piece.
Okay, so we use this form, but this form does not have the members' names who are included on that particular.
It has on the back side. Last year, that piece was on the back side, and I don't think there's not a slide that scans in the back side, but the back side should have the place where you write in the names.
So now I have to tell my troop leaders that they actually have to write everybody's name on this form. Where before they didn't have to do that?
Correct. Well, or if they really don't want to write it, as long as they fill out this entire front side, if they want to staple that piece that came off of there, I don't think that Robin would, be upset about that. But the front side of this form has to be filled out before you staple the other piece to it. Again, one of the things that other form doesn't have is it doesn't have all of this piece for the dollar amounts, any of the payments, all of that kind of stuff is really important for them as far as being able to justify the money that's been banked or has been sent in through PayPal. Any of that kind of stuff really needs to be justified from an accounting perspective.
So when this bottom part, this payment portion,
yes.
Normally I would have a troop that would bring to me a receipt that shows that they deposited $150 for 10 people. And now they have to tell me how much of that was cash and how much of it was charged and how much was check.
Well, the thing is if you have cash and check, you're going to see that right on the bank receipt. The bank receipt will actually delineate out what is cash and what is check. As far as all of that other stuff, just draw a line through it. You don't need it, So no, you don't have to.
So I need to transfer it
or anything, but you just need to put that dollar amount and then put the total down so that they have the total amount that's coming through in those dollar amounts.
Okay.
I know it's not easy to try to get people to change. Change is not easy for any of us. I'm going through a lot of change myself at work, so I can understand the and plus we're telling other volunteers that this is what you have to do. It's not like a job where you're paid for it. One of the things that I would consider doing is looking at creative ways to get them to fill it out. How can you help them? Our service unit is pretty big, so usually at early bird time we have anywhere between 20 to 30 troops that are brand new that were formed this last year. And as you can imagine, those 20 or 30 leaders are, completely like a deer in the headlight when we tell them that we're going to want them to enter their troops into e-council so that they can get comfortable with e-council and they can put in the data. One of the things that we do in our service unit, I have to say I actually borrowed from the Fisher service unit, so if anybody from Fisher's is out there, thank you. But we have done library nights probably like the past 3 years where people can come up to the library. We have like a 2-hour block of time. They come in, they have all their stuff. Some of them have actually registered everything, but maybe they're having a little bit of a hard time filling out the paperwork, so we help them out with that. Some people have not been able to figure out how to do the e-council at all, even with the instructions that are online. And so we just kind of walk them through and teach them how to do it so they're comfortable with it for the next time around. And that helps them as far as turning in the paperwork and having it completed correctly. Again, I know that that's not always easy to try to coordinate, but it's just an idea for you. I don't know how that will work. Everybody's service unit is different. But you might want to give something like that a try. So the next form is the girls' membership form. And one of the pieces that's really important is right up here. There's an area where it says, I want to opt in, I believe is what it says. I don't think it says out. If I remember correctly, it says in. And they are basically, when they're opting in, they're agreeing to, on behalf of their girl, receiving auto-dialed information or marketing text messages at the number that you have, and the same for emails. So one of the things is if you don't think somebody's going to want that, make sure that they see that box and ask them. If they haven't checked off the circles, or they haven't written anything in there, make sure they saw it. So if they do want it, they can. And if they do not want it, then they can leave it blank. So one of the questions that I'm just seeing right now is there going to be a way that these forms will be able to be submitted via computer? At this time, no. As far as like actually typing it on the computer, when I get to the spot in just a little bit talking about how to get everything to council, there is a way that you can either fax or scan and fax the forms in so that you don't have to be putting them in the mail. So the scanning and the fax goes directly to people's emails, and the fax number that you're going to be given actually would be going to Robin Beechler, who is the person that was Carol's boss when she had the position that she did, and Robin is going to be the person that's going to be the point person right now while council makes final decisions as far as what they're going to do with the position. The adult membership form, the demographics area was altered, and that text and email disclaimer has been added. If you look, it's right here up at the top where it says text and emails. So they could actually check off, that they only wanted emails but didn't want text, or the vice versa. The Get Involved section, where it used to say, are you going to get involved by family members? Or are you going to want to lead a troop? Do you want to help with other things? That section has been completely removed. And then the Girl Scout council codes, the troop numbers, all of those have been moved back down here to the bottom of the page. You'll see where it says council code, says the service unit, and then the troop number. So those have been moved from the top of the form down to here. The next thing that we want to talk about a little bit is supporting the new leaders. Again, the idea of the registrar is not for you to do every single thing by yourself. If you do, you're going to be really busy, and with all of that, probably pulling your hair out. So what we want to do as service unit registrars is we're going to be entering registrations for new troops as new troops are being formed. And all other troop leaders, yes, even the ones that are still computer shy and afraid of everything, to the new ones that were formed this last fall, we want to be teaching them how to enter their own registrations. One leader or volunteer in each troop needs to have e-council access, and that e-council access, there is a form that is out on the website at Girl Scouts of Central Indiana, and where it says e-council access, you click on that, and instead of being a paper form, it is actually now all automated and goes right through the internet. So the person would type it in, fill it out, and within about 48 to 72 hours, they will have their e-council information so that they can get into e-council. There is an e-council training session, and Carrie, it looks like you did not fill out where that is at. So when Carrie gives me that information, I will give it to you guys. But that's going to be so that you actually have access to it, so that you have all of this information at your fingertips, and you can go back in to relook at the e-council training session. And Carrie is telling me that the session is going to be put up on the website, on the Girl Scouts of Central Indiana website under the volunteer section. So that's where the training will be for e-council, and we can point our troops to there. The other thing that I'm seeing right now is a question. The question is that Carol usually sent out an up-to-date list of who has e-council access for our service unit, and will we be getting this updated list soon? Carrie, I'm going to leave that up to you to answer that. So we're going to have to check and see. I do know that Meg was aware of the list. I talked to her about that list about 3 weeks ago or so and sent her an old copy of one of the HSE lists so that she could see it and bring it to Robin and ask her about that. So I'm not sure what's going on with that, but Carrie and the rest of the team will get back to us so that we have that information later. Okay, now the fun part. How are we going to do all of the all of the paperwork as far as getting it to council? First of all, I want to go over a couple of dates. The first thing is that what we have done is there is different dates for turning the paperwork in. The last few years, it has been that everything has to be to council by the middle of July, and it still has to be to council by July. But what we're going to be doing is kind of a tiered look at everything. So in your service unit, your troop should be getting paperwork to you for the early bird deadline of June 1st. That allows you a few days to kind of look at everything, collect it together, make sure it's all in line, and then we will be wanting to, for that time, get that directly to either the membership development manager or get it to Robin. And the membership development manager deadline is July 1st. Dropping it off at the local GSCI center is July 1st. And what you want to know is that those are only if you are not going to be, only if you have actually entered the information into eCouncil. If you are not going to enter the information into eCouncil, that's where this one down here comes in for the June 20th. It has to be to Robin by June 20th. If it is not being entered into eCouncil by a registrar or a troop leader or somebody that's volunteering to help with inside the service unit. So again, to Robin by June 20th, if somebody is not entering it, July 1st, if it's already been entered by one of us, and you should be telling your service unit to get it to you by June 1st so that there's time to be able to do everything that needs to be done. Okay. So early bird registration is technically April 1st to July 15th. Again, those deadlines that I just put up there as far as when to turn in paperwork is really important so that we can get everything organized for the following year and they can pull out data. Now, the early bird registration, it's beginning April 1st and ending July 15th. To be part of the early bird registration for 2015, each troop must be registered into eCouncil by July 15th. We want to encourage troops to basically be self-sufficient. We want to encourage them to use their cookie proceeds to pay for dues so that the girls have some understanding of what being financially and fiscally sound is, so they understand things cost things. And they're able to start kind of looking at that even at a younger age. The other thing is that if you're registered by July 15th, each leader, co-leader, assistant leader, group leader will also receive the early bird patch along with the girls this year. So they're trying to appease the women that want to get their patches on their denim shirts and see if we can get people to enter in everything quicker into eCouncil. Now, for the troop incentive, the other piece that the girls are going to be getting is if for the troops, if they meet the specifications, they can get the slumber at the Speedway. So what are the specifications for early years? Basically, it's only offered to the Girl Scout troops who have registered by the deadline of July 15th and have registered the same number of girls as the previous year, plus 2 additional girls. So they have to have 2 additional girls in troop growth in order to be able to go to the Speedway for this as a benefit. The growth is going to be measured against the girl count of the troop that's in eCouncil as of May 30th. The overnight's going to take place at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway like it did last year. It's going to be from October 11th to October 12th are the dates. And with that, they have changed a little bit from last year. There's going to be food vendors that are available throughout the day for troops to purchase food, and Girl Scouts of Central Indiana is not going to be supplying any food this year. You can also bring your own food with you as a troop if you want to do that. The next thing that you want to understand as far as that is that with sleeping overnight, they can bring their tents and they can sleep out on the track with their fellow Girl Scouts. If they're not comfortable sleeping at the track, there is an option of staying over at Camp Delwood in the platform tents. It'll be first come, first served basis. I am sure that there will be details as far as that coming out in the near future so that we would know how to put our name in if we want to be able to get a platform tent. The girls are going to be able to rotate through hands-on stations. Some of those stations are going to include some STEM activities along with riding the bicycle around the track. The event's going to end at 9 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, and it's going to go on rain or shine. The other thing is that in order for them, again, to do this, is they have to have completed the early bird registration by July 15th. They have to maintain the current number of girls based on the 30 troop size, and they have to add 2 new girls. Now, some of you that have older girl troops might be saying, what's going to happen with the older girls? Well, with the older girls, girls that are Girl Scout cadets, seniors, and ambassadors who complete the early bird registration are going to be able to participate as a volunteer for a 4-hour shift and sleep over Friday night. This early bird registration does not have to be completed for them to do this to participate, and there are going to be fun activities for the older girls to enjoy, and to include a golf session that's only going to be available for the older girls. So this is what's going to happen as far as that piece for the slumber party at the IMS Speedway. Now, the next thing I want to talk about for a few minutes is data integrity. Data integrity is really important for eCouncil, and it's one of the most, probably the hardest thing for all of us to make sure that it's done. One of the things as registrars, you should be looking at the data in all of your troops and helping to correct things if some of the leaders have put things in wrong. You want to make sure that you verify all of your entries, both the old and the new that are in eCouncil. Make sure that the changes were appropriate. Make sure that they did put their troop up to the next grade level. Change to school if going up a next grade level changes the school. You want to make sure that they've changed that. You also want to make sure that the addresses are nicely done, that there's capital letters for the beginning of a street name, that email addresses are complete and have wherever it is and not just the first part of the email address. So if it's like at Yahoo, that it says at Yahoo and it doesn't just have a dot and not tell you where it is at. Telephone numbers are really important to have in there, especially for emergency access purposes, as far as if you needed to look something up. The other thing that has been a problem in the past is making sure that the troop leaders are searching for each individual before creating a new entry. Double check that the person's name hasn't been entered as a nickname. So like if somebody's name is Elizabeth and that's what all they have on the paper, make sure last year somebody didn't put it in as Liz or Beth or Liza for that matter. You want to make sure that you've looked at it many different ways to make sure that it's not in there. This actually helps avoid duplication errors. And when we have duplication errors, what that does is it makes the trending data incorrect because it looks like we have more people than we do kind of thing, or that people haven't continued on when they have. If somebody has a hyphenated last name, look for them with the hyphenated last name and look for them with both halves of that last name because, again, they could be in one way or the other. When you're typing them in, if you only type in a piece of a name, then you can actually take and look at a larger list to determine whether or not they may actually be in there whereas if you had typed out their full name, that they may not be able to. So, Carrie, I see that there is a comment from Randy, basically that if we could search by date of birth, that would be nice. That's something maybe to talk to the people that have the database for the e-council and see if that would be something to be done in the past. Cynthia, I see your hand up, and I'm sorry I hadn't called on you while I was talking. What can I do to answer your question?
Well, this is with regard to the Speedway event. I've had several troop leaders express concern that they've had girls who registered last year but then dropped out almost at the start of the year. But those girls are still registered to their troop. So if you had 10 girls and 3 of them dropped out at the very start of the year, at the end of the year, you're considered to have 10 girls, which means to do the Speedway, you have to have a total of 12, which means 5 more girls than you had before. So I've had troop leaders ask, is there a way to get some of those girls out of my troop and into like Juliet category or something like that? But then our MDM said, well, we really don't want you just moving a bunch of people into Juliet's because Juliet really is its own category. Maybe there should be a separate troop number for girls who have essentially dropped out. So
that
how
is
can
a
that
question
be addressed?
for council because of the fact that it involves the data integrity. So Carrie, Meg, I think both of you are on there. If one of you guys want to address that, because I'm not sure what the answer should be. And I'm kind of thinking that they may not have an exact answer for you at this point, because that's a pretty tough question. What I would say is let's table this question, and I would ask that you, one, talk to your MDM, and then perhaps speak to Robin, since she's in charge of the early bird registration piece. And then you can also talk to both Carrie and Meg. You can call either one of them at council and be able to get them to kind of help with figuring out the answer for that. I'm sorry I don't have a direct answer for you, Cynthia. I apologize. Okay. Does anybody else have any other questions regarding any of this? Connie? Connie, you want to unmute your line and go ahead and ask?
There I have. How do I do that? I don't know how.
You were unmuted. Whatever you just did, undo it again.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. And I may have missed this. I had my husband sitting in on the beginning for me. Okay. Early bird is usually for girls that are just returning. So you said, and not registering new girls. But you're saying that their count, to do the Speedway thing, they have to have their current, their number that they have now plus 2 more. But they don't register those 2 more new girls until fall?
That can happen sometimes. We actually had a lot of troops last year that added their 2 girls during open registration.
Yeah, but those 2 shouldn't register until fall if they're new, right?
Technically not, correct.
Okay, that's my question. Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions? And Meg is saying to everybody in the chat that we can add the 2 new girls in the fall and still qualify for the Speedway.
I have a clarifying question.
Go for it.
And it's Michelle. Sorry, I'm on my work computer and I was in a meeting with my boss previously, so that's why I told Michelle and Jeffrey. So we do not have a completely paperless option here with early bird. We're saying that the due summary has to be, that membership summary has to be submitted for every single troop?
Correct. Now, you don't have to have them fill out registration forms for every girl. Just that summary sheet. That's all that needs to be filled out.
Okay, because last year we were touting the paperless improvement of early bird. So now we're saying we have to have the paper of the membership summary.
Yeah, my guess, I haven't talked to anybody at council, but my guess is that the justification of everything became difficult without having something that they could actually fall back on to marry things up. Having done that kind of accounting stuff in different jobs in the past, it's not fun.
I don't know about everybody else, but getting paper from all of the troops is darn near impossible. So this will be interesting. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, Michelle. Okay, does anybody else have any questions? Kelly? Kelly, your hand's up if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself. Okay, if not Kelly, Randy?
Yeah, I was wondering, okay, the deadline to get the paperwork to either the service center or your development manager is July 1st. But the end of early bird registration is July 15th.
Correct.
So if we stuff, after July 1st, I guess those girls are still considered registered for early bird.
Correct. If they are in the system before July 15th, they are for early bird. But if we don't put numbers out, it's kind of like a cookie time. If you don't tell them when to deposit the money, they're going to be scurrying around last minute trying to deposit thousands of dollars.
Right.
And so with these deadlines, what it allows us and it allows council to have some space for the ones that are always going to fall outside the piece. But if you've got 100 people registering their troops, you've got 100 troops, and you've got 80 of them that get it in by July 1st to you, if you then have another 10 of them get it into Robin, say by June 20th, they know they have to do the entry work for those girls. And then after that, now you've got all of a sudden, another 10 that maybe 3 of them all of a sudden start calling and saying, oh, I forgot all about this. Is there any way you can possibly help me? I don't want to tell my girls no, so they don't get patches. You've got a few extra days to play with.
I gotcha. Okay, so that July 1st is not actually a hard date.
It's a hard date for council so that they can justify everything. I mean, if you come to them last minute, they're not going to turn somebody away, no. But as far as what you need to do is to use those dates with your troops so that you have guidelines out there and so that you can get in everything that you need. Now, if you had like a paper form and you're giving it to Robin after the 20th, you're not going to be able to give them enough time to do data entry. Just like us, using ourselves and other volunteers within the service unit, all of the data entry by council is done by volunteers that they get in. So if, like in our service unit, we do all of our data entry pretty much ourselves. Very few things, matter of fact, the only thing that I know of recently that's gone to council was one that needed a financial assistance for a new leader issue that we had with a troop that fell apart. So other than that, everything is done by us, and then we turn in the dues summary sheet, that summary sheet, to council. So if we weren't doing it, and Fishers wasn't doing it, and Noblesville wasn't doing it, and Lawrence wasn't doing it, you can see how that would add up as far as what all of a sudden council has to put in for data. And if you think about how much time, even if you're just flipping over girls for, your registration from one year to another, it takes a few minutes to do it. Now put that paperwork in front of a volunteer that doesn't know the names of the girls in the troop. She doesn't have a visualization of who they are or how many, girls other than what's on that piece of paper. And she's having to double check more than you or I would or that leader would because she's not familiar with those names at all. So that's why the deadlines for the pieces as far as the paper forms coming in and to ask council to do the data entry, which is the June 20th deadline to Robin, is hard and fast. Okay. But yeah, I mean, if you have somebody that comes to you as a registrar on, I don't know, June 30th, July 3rd, because they caught you right before you went off for your July 4th celebration, sure, if you take that paperwork from them and they've already put it into e-council and get that to council, they're going to accept that. But as far as paper stuff, they can't be accepting a lot of troop stuff in there. And again, the actual deadline for what's inside of eCouncil has to be July 15th. The other thing is that if you want to, the other thing that you want to look at is that if your troop leaders are doing their own, then they're going to be taking their debit card and putting the information in for their troop account, hopefully washing the money through their troop account to make it easier. And now you don't have to worry about pieces of paper being missing. You don't have to worry about if they gave you a whole bunch of paper and they're expecting you or council to enter that stuff into the troop. Now you've got all this information written down. It's just much cleaner and much easier if you do it that way, and that the troop leaders themselves are the ones entering into eCouncil. Usually there's about one in our service unit that will, call us 2 days before the deadline, and, we'll tell us, but you've got to put it into eCouncil right now and get the paperwork to me within the next 24 hours. And so that's how we've handled it in the past. At least when I was registrar, that was how I handled it. Now, one of the questions that I see here, Michelle, you're asking about to pay for the registration in eCouncil, and yes, it is still default that they must pay by credit card unless they otherwise request the access to be changed in eCouncil so they can do the deposit at the bank. If they need to do that, they need to email Robin, and they need to give Robin 48 to 72 hours to reply back. She might reply back sooner, but depending upon what her workload is with trying to juggle everything, and again, council trying to figure out who's going to be doing what, you need to give her, 2 to 3 days so that she can get that turned around. So you want to make sure that if you do have a troop leader that you think is going to ask that, that you get them to get that request in early. All they have to do is email Robin, especially like I know that there's one troop I can think of that they always do a check into the bank. I don't think that particular troop even owns a debit card. So because of that, we usually ask, for theirs to be turned to being able to do it at the bank.
So you talked about the online.
Go ahead.
You talked about the online form earlier for that, so that would automatically go in without the 48-72-hour turnaround?
I'm sorry, that would automatically go in with, I didn't hear that last part of the question.
So you were talking about giving 48 to 72-hour turnaround on the eCouncil access, but if they do the online form and it's okay to use the debit card, credit card, then it's more instantaneous. They don't have to wait that long.
The only time, the 48 to 72 hours is if you have a troop leader that doesn't want to pay by a debit card or a credit card for some reason inside of eCouncil, it's going to come up that way. So you have to have them email Robin so she can switch their access around so it doesn't come up with that button that forces them to pay that way.
So when they do the online form to request access, that access will be almost immediate?
The access will be, again, in 2 to 3 days after that form is filled out. It is not immediate because it still takes a person to touch it in order to be able to do the access and give them their password.
Okay, so it's still 48 to 72 regardless of whether you're going to use your credit card or not?
Correct.
Okay.
One of the things that you should be doing as registrar now and throughout the year is we try to get our troop leaders to actually do that form early on. Like I'm the CTO at one of our elementary schools right now, and I actually had contacted all of my leaders by email and then kind of followed up with them and made sure that they put that in back in like January, February to make sure they had that access.
Yeah, I've been working on that, but until I get that revised report, I don't know who actually has access. So.
Right, until we get the actual spreadsheet. And that's why that spreadsheet's important. I understand that. The next question that I see is, will troops be getting early bird re-registration emails this year? Carrie or Meg, can you comment on that?
Yeah, I typed that in the box. Sorry, I'm trying to answer the ones that I can. The electronic email will be going out from what Robin said on Monday. it goes out to one person in the troop. Whoever is on that troop as the lead person is the one that's going to get that email. So they need to, if they don't get one, then they'll need to contact the office if there's been a leadership change. But currently the way it gets pulled is whoever is listed as the troop leader on the troop, that's the person that's going to get that email. Does that make sense?
Okay, hopefully that makes sense for everybody. Okay. Again, when you get the completed due summary form, those can either be faxed, scanned and emailed, or they can be given to your MDM or dropped off at a service center in order to make sure that council has that. And the next question is, should I, as the registrar, get a due summary from the e-council troop person each time a membership is added that I need to submit to Robin? Is that correct? Yes, if somebody is adding somebody during the year, somebody that they didn't have in there before, and it's an additional person, that is an additional piece of paper that needs to go into council so that they can justify everything. And then the next question is, what does the troop need to do, and what do they turn in to the registrar if they follow the re-registration invitation? Again, they need to turn in that troop summary that we talked about in the very, very beginning. This one that's back here. Find it real quick. I'll flip back to it for you guys so you can visualize it, just in case you're like me. Okay. So again, here's the membership registration summary. That has to be turned in after they do their re-registration. Even if they're following the re-registration invitation inside their email, they then need to go back out, go back in to their troops so they can get that 6-digit number and put that number on the form, and then fill out the rest of the form to turn it into council. So they need to give it to the registrar. Yes.
I might add, when it gets put up, so we have an online training that is at the people right now to get put onto the website so that anybody who has not yet added their done re-registration through eCouncil can go through this. It's a 20-minute tutorial. It would benefit all of you if you have an opportunity to also listen to it. That way you know exactly what we've instructed them to do. And in that tutorial, it tells them once you hit submit and it goes back to the page that has the EFT transmittal summary on it where you get the summary number, and it tells them that they have to put it on this form. So it is in their training that they will have to fill this form out and turn the form and their bank receipt into you. So it might help you all to go through that. Like I said, it's 20 minutes. I hope it's easy. And by all means, if you find an error in it, you can give me a call or send me an email and let me know. But it's exactly, you'll be able to know exactly what we've told them to do. And I see the question, is it included in the re-registration email to the leaders? No. That might be a good thing to do. But it's also going to be kind of up to you guys to let them know that it's a brand new tool. We came up with it last week and it just got sent to online. So I'm hoping it'll be a really good tool for you to use so that you can instruct them. Anybody who you entered last year who's entering for themselves this year to go through first, and if they have any questions, they've been directed to either contact their service unit registrar or the council. And there is a way to track who takes the training. That was the next question. At the very end of the training, there's a link that they can click, and it's a participation record, and they put their name and address and everything in it, and it goes on to their training record in eCouncil. The video is not yet up. It's I have sent it to the people that need to put it up. My hope is that it will be up by April 1st. So by the beginning of Early Bird, they should have access to it.
Kelly, I see your hand up. Did you have a question, or is that left up from over before?
Are you there?
Yep.
This is Kelly. Okay. I think I got my question answered. So.
Okay. That is a good thing. Carolyn, your hand is up also. Did you have a question? And the last hand I see up as we're trying to wrap up everything is Connie.
Can you hear me?
You had a question? Yep. Oh, Connie, go ahead. Nope, you've muted yourself again. Connie, you're going to want to unmute yourself again. I can see you on the video cam, but I can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Are we going to get a copy of the PowerPoint that you used this evening?
We can get that pushed out to you, yes.
That would be helpful. I'm assuming the PowerPoint's going to answer any of my last questions as far as going back over it.
I will send out the PowerPoint and a script of the slides so that you can look at it.
Okay.
And then also I'm recording it so that I can make that available to anyone as well.
Super.
Cynthia, your hand's up. Did you have another question?
Yes, in the forms library online, I've found the eCounsel confidentiality agreement link that goes to the online submission, but the link to the paper one is still there. Will you be taking down the paper link?
Eventually.
I'm still trying to do that. There's two places right now that it looks like you can get that confidentiality agreement. If you go to the volunteer section and hover over the drop down, if you go to, I believe it's become a volunteer and hover over that, the one to submit is underneath that, but they are also moving it to the forms library. The one under the forms library still had some inaccurate information in it, and she was taking that down and going to put the link to the same one. So it'll be in two places.
Well, on the forms library right now, there's the paper link and then there's the online link. Are you leaving them both there, or are you going strictly to the online?
It'll be strictly the online. There shouldn't be a paper link because the paper, I'll have to check it. I haven't seen it since she's done it. The paper link is the outdated material. It's all online now.
Okay. So I won't point people, because if I tell them to go to the forms library and do it, they're going to find that paper one before they see the one.
Yeah, I'll double check it first thing tomorrow morning and make sure it's the accurate information.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the next question is to review the forms in addition to the due summary that need to be submitted to the registrar and then on to council. With that membership registration summary, you need to make sure that they've written the summary number from their entry in eCounsel. You need to make sure that they've signed, that they're the ones that have actually been the ones to enter everything into eCounsel as far as forms being completed by. That's up here in the top corner over here. The summary receipts over here. And what you need to also do is make sure that if they paid by a bank, like a deposit in the bank, that they have this area filled out down here. And that they also have the bank receipt number up here. If you notice, it says summary/receipt number. So if they have a bank receipt number, there should be a slash there and the bank receipt number there also. Thank you, Carrie. The next thing that you want to also make sure that they do is if they do any banking, that bank receipt is stapled to this so that it does not get lost. And that is what you want to turn into council. If they have done everything online and they've paid online, they do not need to do anything other than filling out this form and giving you this form. And then what they would be able to justify with council is down here it would tell them how many girls, et cetera, at $15 each, and the adults at $15 each. And they would then be able to go down and fill that out, and then again, council would be able to justify it so that they know that everything's matching up as far as monies to how many people have been registered.
Okay. Okay.
So hopefully that helps. Any other questions? Slide up and down here, make sure there's nobody else's hands up.
I think your question is, she asked what other forms? The only form that needs to be turned in is the membership registration summary form. The girl and adult membership forms, when and if you receive them, like if it's a new girl and you've received one at some time during the year, the actual membership forms are to remain at the local level for 1 year. They do not need to be sent into the council.
Any other
Did
questions?
that answer? Oh, the e-council form. If you get, well, we're trying to eliminate the confidentiality agreement, the e-council form, that should be done online. And as far as the volunteer forms, I would suggest that you have them, if they're going to fill out a paper one, they need to be sent into any council service center within 5 business days. But I would suggest you have them either send them in themselves so that you're not responsible for their private information, or direct them to the volunteer application online. It's very secure. Their information goes directly in. You never have to touch their personal information. So that's our preferred method. The other reason is because paper forms take longer to process, and the online volunteer application gets sent into the council instantaneously, and it helps us with our goal of getting them turned around within 10 days. When we get a big, during the fall, when we get hundreds of them, if we get them online, it is much, much easier to turn them around if we get it digitally.
And the question is, if we get any financial assist requests for early bird, do we submit them the same way? Yes, they need to go through the membership development manager. The form needs to be filled out, needs to be signed by the parent, needs to be signed by the troop leader, and then given to the MDM.
I have a question.
Yep.
Okay. How do we know that they have done all that online?
Yep.
Which
Good question.
one? E-council or volunteer forms?
Any of it.
Okay. With e-council, there will be, hopefully, a spreadsheet coming out in the near future that would show which leaders in your troop or which volunteers, because it doesn't have to be the troop leader. It can be somebody that says, I'll be e-council mom, just like that they're doing, for cookies. And you should have that information that they are there. If a troop is not there on that spreadsheet with a person's name next to it that they have access to that troop, then that troop does not have anybody, and you need to get them to get somebody to fill out the form online for the e-council and get access. The volunteer forms, when it comes back and their background check is complete, there is an area in e-council that is underneath where it will actually say CBC. And the CBC is for the completed background check. And what will show is that whether it's been approved or if it's been approved with like a caveat kind of thing. So there are some people that are approved for being volunteers, but they're not allowed to touch money, would be an example. And there would be information there under their name in e-council. The other place that you get that is as the volunteer background checks come back, your membership development manager gets a report every Friday, I believe, if I'm remembering the day of the week right, if there is anything for their service units. They are then supposed to take and get that out to the service unit so the registrar has that information and can then pass it down to the CTOs so that you know that people have their background checks done. If you are trying to put together a new troop, you are not supposed to be giving anybody any information on any of the kids or the adults in their new troop unless they actually have their background check completed and back. So that would be how you would find those two things and know that they have done those.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Make sure nobody's hands up. I don't see anybody's hands up. Okay, so to go back to Robin's information, I'm going to stick it up here so that you guys can see it. Robin Beechler, again, is the person at council who is responsible for everything right now as they figure out how they're going to delegate out responsibilities or fill Carol's position in the future. So again, Robin Beechler, rbeechler@girlscoutsindiana.org. Uh-oh. I just realized her phone number is truncated, ladies. You can call the main number for Girl Scouts of Central Indiana since I don't know her direct line. And the main number for Girl Scouts of Central Indiana, if you don't know it, you can find it on the website. And it's also 924-6800.
She answers much faster to the emails as well, so because she can answer from anywhere. And that's actually the fax number that got truncated, which is not good. I'll have to look it up real quick.
Okay, and if you look down at the bottom of your chat, Carrie's got her email address down there, khoffman@girlscoutsindiana.org. And Carrie also it's much easier to get a hold of Carrie by email than trying to call her because she's always on the move. And she will answer you back. Any other questions? Okay. Well, I think that concludes the training tonight so that you guys can get started on early bird registration. Information should be being given out by the emails. You should be giving out information to your leaders at your next service unit meeting. And hopefully all of this has helped this evening. So everybody have a good night.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Marianne, a lot for your help tonight.
No problem.